harkens back to previous moral panics and previous eras of law enforcement in America, particularly the war on drugs. When we say that the war on sex trafficking is the new war on drugs, obviously we don't think that the war on drugs is over. We know that it is still raging and that it is still having disastrous consequences of all sorts. But the moral panic about drugs seems to be on the decline. We're on the downswing of that. So as much as there's still all this kind of stuff happening, we don't see the sort of escalating hysteria and the subsequent demand that lawmakers do something about it, as we did in, say, the 80s or 90s. So what we're seeing now with these laws surrounding sex in various ways in the United States is sort of like the 80s and 90s climate with the drug war. But before we get back to that, and Lauren's going to talk more about that later, we're going to go back and make a further back historical time with the FBI. Sorry, I'm a little nervous right now. But the late 1800s and the early 1900s, the progressive era and right before it, there was a lot of similar activity to what we see now, actually. A lot of people don't know this, but the first federal immigration restriction in 1870 was actually a restriction on sex workers. It banned Asian women who were going to come to the country and work in prostitution from coming to the United States. Sometime between then and the early 1900s, they passed another. They extended that to everybody. Anybody who was going to come and work in prostitution couldn't come here. If an immigrant came here and they were here legally, but they were found within, I think it was 3 years to be working in prostitution, then they could be immediately deported. In 1910, two big things happened. They expanded that law so that it didn't matter, the 3-year period didn't matter. So people didn't have to prove that people were, when they had come here. If you were an immigrant and you were working in prostitution, you could be deported. Also in 1910, they passed the Mann Act, which was a federal law saying that it was illegal to transport women or children across state lines for commercial sex or any other immoral purposes. And to enforce this law, the FBI had been really small at this time. The FBI had been mostly on the eastern seaboard and had about 30 people working for them. But in order to enforce the Mann Act, it had to establish field offices all across the United States. So this is what actually drove the first major expansion of the FBI. And we think a lot about the FBI being driven by policing prohibition or policing mobs in the 40s or policing dissidents later on. We think of them, obviously in the drug war. But the thing that took them from this sort of small, just sort of DC-based police agency into the national agency that we have today was establishing people all across the United States to enforce the Mann Act. And at this time, a lot of what they referred to this as white slavery. The idea being, especially, people were very much afraid of immigrants at this time also, and so there was this fear that immigrants were coming to America and they were importing their bad practices and they were going to kidnap white women and force them into prostitution. And that was the big panic that was sort of used to push the need for these new laws and these new FBI. They called them white slavery squads for a while, and they established them in 300 cities across the United States. And federal agents from the FBI and the Immigration Division would work super closely together to register all of, because this was a time when prostitution was legal in a lot of areas, and there would be these red light districts, and they would register all the residents of them, they would police their movements, and you saw for the first time too, the FBI and immigration really working closely together, concentrating on prostitution. This went on for a long time. Between 1921 and 1936, they opened 47,500 Mann Act investigations, but only 6,300 convictions, so about a 13% success rate. And the reason is that because as time went on, they stopped just using this to go after people who were transporting people for prostitution, and it gave federal agents license to go after people for all sorts of things that they considered subversive. It was usually used a lot to target people for interracial relationships. It would use to be target people who they suspected of being gay, people that they suspected, that they just found suspicious historians of the FBI typically emphasize the Bureau's role in domestic political policing of ideological and racial minorities, but this overlooks how central policing of sexuality was to the development of the FBI as a national agency with the capacity to conduct such political surveillance. So just wanted to give you guys that little bit of history before we get into what is going on today. We're going to back up a minute, and we're going to start with just some defining of terms. When I talk about sex work, just to make sure we're all on the same page here, sex work is a broad term that can, describe all sorts of activities from people who are strippers to people who are dominatrixes, prostitutions, and porn stars, and all sorts of things. They all sort of fall under the umbrella of sex work. When we talk about sex work, the crucial element is consent. It's people who are consenting to be engaging in this activity. Some sorts of sex work are legal, and some sorts are illegal. Prostitution is illegal pretty much almost everywhere across America, except for a few counties, or one county in Nevada. The lines between that are obviously sort of blurred between the kind of things that are legal and not legal, because, being a dominatrix and, fulfilling someone's sort of fetish requests is legal. Being a sugar baby and, accepting a monthly sum for going on dates with someone and maybe whatever happens, that's legal. But directly, exchanging cash for some sort of agreed upon sexual activity, that is illegal across most of America. So, we all kind of know what prostitution is. Hopefully that understands what sex work is. Sex trafficking is where it gets tricky. When people hear sex trafficking, I'm not sure what people think of, but I think, a lot of people think of human smuggling, that there's some sort of people being, migrating across borders, or at least maybe state borders, being brought places. We think of people being kidnapped. At the federal level right now, U.S. laws define human trafficking they actually call it trafficking in persons, and there are two different kinds of trafficking in persons. There's labor trafficking and there is sex trafficking. Labor trafficking is the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, or obtaining of a person for labor or services through the use of force, fraud, or coercion. So, force, fraud, or coercion being the key elements there. Sex trafficking, we have sort of the same thing: the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, obtaining, patronizing, advertising, or soliciting of a person for the purposes of a commercial sex act, in which the commercial sex act is induced by force, fraud, or coercion, or in which the person induced to perform such a sex act has not attained 18 years of age. That's what is two interesting things I want to point out about the federal definition of sex trafficking. If someone is under 18, no force, fraud, or coercion has to be involved. Anyone who is under 18 and is engaged in prostitution is defined as a sex trafficking victim, because they're defined as not being legally able to consent to that. It doesn't matter if they don't have a pimp. It doesn't matter if they were just, operating totally independently. It doesn't matter if no one was exerting, any threats on them or anything. They're still defined as a sex trafficking victim. And anyone who solicits sex from them or aids them in any way, like say driving them to an appointment or something, they could be charged as a sex trafficker, even if the person, they have no idea how old the person is. It explicitly says not knowing the person was under 18 is not an excuse. So that's what I think is one interesting thing to remember about this law. The other thing is that over time it has expanded. It started as just, the recruitment, harboring, transportation, that sort of thing, which is, someone who is actually engaged in getting someone to engage in forced sex, or getting someone underage to engage in prostitution. Recently, we've added other things like soliciting, which is what we think of as just prostitution customers. So offering to pay anyone for sex if they turn out to be a trafficking victim. And the other new one is advertising, which also is now part of it. So anyone who advertises anyone who turns out to be a defined as a trafficking victim is also a sex trafficker themselves. So it doesn't differentiate in this law really between those different sorts of things. So someone who kidnaps someone and forces them into prostitution is considered the same legally as someone who tries to pay someone who they think is 20 years old and it turns out they're 17. That's sort of the same under federal law. Lauren is now going to talk a little bit more about the federal laws that are in place for this.
So as you can see, there's been a lot of activity at the federal level as far as legislation is concerned for sex trafficking offenses. So I'm just going to kind of briefly talk about all of these laws and what they've done. So Liz already talked about the Mann Act, which was passed in 1910. but whatever. But it is similar to what we saw with the drug war. We saw a number of states enacted the 3 strikes you're off rule. So which means if you have 2 prior convictions for anything and then you get convicted of any drug offense or certain offenses, then you are out, aka sentenced to life in prison, sometimes without the possibility of parole. Most of the time without the possibility of parole, which means you're going to die in prison. And then mandatory life for a second sex offense with a minor is what this law did. And in 2005, it was reauthorized again, and it added human trafficking to RICO laws, which are racketeering laws, which are often used for drug offenses as well. So aimed at taking down criminal organizations. Often that's not actually what happens. It starts targeting anybody and everybody they want to, which is some kind of vague links to one another. It increased funding for prosecution and purchase of commercial sex at the federal level and state level, and increased federal funding for local law enforcement and new education campaigns, similar to what we've seen with like DARE programs across the United States, sort of educating people about what sex trafficking is and drugs are bad and stuff. I don't know. In 2008, we saw it reauthorized again, and each time it's reauthorized, you notice that they take up penalties for these offenses. So, which is what they did again. They enhanced penalties for traffickers. They significantly increased federal funding for stings, federal law enforcement or local law enforcement partnerships. And importantly, in this law, or in the reauthorization of 2008, they added into the definition of what trafficking is as being a person doesn't need to know that the victim is less than 18 years old. So he only has to, or she has to solicit somebody who's under the age of 18. They don't even need to know that the person is under the age of 18 to be convicted as, or charged as a sex trafficker. And then in 2013, it was reauthorized again. And again, we increased federal funding. You get federal task forces in coordination with local law enforcement, these kind of stings and things like that. And then finally, in 2015, we have the Justice for Victims of Trafficking Act, because I guess all the other laws didn't bring about justice for these victims. So we finally have one that will bring about justice, apparently. And this is what Liz was referring to earlier when they added advertising to elements of sex trafficking. So, and this really define what advertising means. So you can run a website, just like any website, I guess, Facebook even, and if somebody were to post an ad advertising an underage girl for sale, the whole website can be held accountable and charged as a sex trafficker, I guess. Or like the CEO of the website, or the IT department, somebody who's worked on the website, somebody who does maintenance for the website, can be charged because the definition is so broad as a sex trafficker, and it carries a 10-year mandatory minimum prison sentence. And it also added soliciting paid sex from a minor to crimes that count as trafficking in persons. So it keeps expanding the definition of what trafficking is, who can be charged as a trafficker, similar to what we've seen with just any all drug laws, which I will get into in the next one. So as we talked about before, every single state already has a law against sex trafficking. It's not like we needed the federal government to come in and create these new laws in order for there to finally be a penalty for it. I think there's thousands of laws in the US already. I mean, if there's something that's important, there's probably a crime, or it's probably a crime, there's probably a law for it. In recent years, though, a number of states, in addition to what's happened at the federal level, a number of states have ramped up penalties, and they've also expanded the definition of what trafficking means to include consensual activity. Louisiana last year, they passed a law that
maybe not libertarians, we don't like asking for return general, but you know, I think a lot of people, you sort of wonder why we should really care that the police are being, you know, a little extra harsh on traffickers. But that's because the way these laws actually work out in practice doesn't do anything like go after people who are actually involved in human trafficking. One of the best ways to illustrate this is through Operation Cross Country. It is an annual thing the FBI has been doing. They've been doing 10 of them. And they partner with local police and state police and also other federal agencies, and they conduct these. They say it's to help stop child sex trafficking. So they conduct these stings across the United States. Yeah, we can go. These are some pictures from the FBI stings to save young people from sexual exploitation. You will notice it is mostly them putting young people in handcuffs and putting them into cop cars, because the way that they help people is not really the way we would generally think of people being helpful. If we go back to the Operation Cross Country slide, so this is Operation Cross Country 10, took place last October. Also, it's the subject of my Reason magazine feature that is out this month. So I've just been writing a lot about this and studying this, and it's a good case study of how federal enforcement goes. It went down in 103 cities across the United States. There were 74 FBI task forces involved, 55 FBI field offices, because every FBI field office in America was involved, 400 individual law enforcement agencies, including, sheriff's offices, city police, U.S. Marshals, the U.S. Coast Guard, Homeland Security, ICE, the DEA, the IRS, Customs and Border Protection, the Department of State. Pretty much if you name a federal agency, they were somehow involved in this massive operation across the United States that was supposed to be targeting underage sex trafficking. Ultimately, they found in the months since October when this went down, they've indicted 5 people on federal charges, and that's it. 2 of them are accused of trafficking adult women who were engaged in prostitution consensually originally, but then these guys, they were cousins, and there were 3 women, and they sort of used threats and stuff to keep them in line. So obviously behavior that's bad, behavior that we don't want to happen, but they were sort of the traditional abusive pimp we think of. They weren't doing any sort of thing like transporting, they weren't running any sort of rings. And they were pretty much the worst people that the government found, these 2 cousins. There were 2 other people arrested for sex trafficking of a minor because they drove teenagers to an appointment to meet with these undercover cops. Both of the teenagers, one of them had a fake ID. They were 16, they had a fake ID, and they were 19. The other one was 17, was a few months short of her 18th birthday. Again, not saying they should be able to, but not saying people should be allowed to help them, maybe. But they are not sex traffickers. These were people who drove these girls to these appointments, and then they got arrested on federal charges for sex trafficking. The last person is the craziest. Derek Horn. He lived in Kansas City, which is a city that straddles Missouri and Kansas. And so part of it is in one state and part of it is in the other. He met a girl he was 26, he met a girl on the app Hot or Not. And so they started dating, and after a few weeks, he was like, hey, I can help you make money in prostitution. And she was like, okay. They have text message records of all of them, saying this. They split the money where I think, she got like 3/4 and he took a quarter of it or something. They went to this 3 or 4 times before they answered an ad for an undercover cop. That was part of Operation Cross Country. So he drove her from the Missouri part of the city to the Kansas part of the city to go meet the cop for the thing. And when they got there, they arrested her on prostitution charges, and they arrested him for violating the Mann Act, which we talked about earlier, because he transported someone across state lines, an 18-year-old across state lines for prostitution. And now he's in federal prison, and he faces up to 20 years in prison for this. And she also is charged and was arrested for prostitution. So those were the 5 people that the federal government actually arrested in this massive child sex trafficking operation. They also arrested at least 500 women for prostitution and at least 175 men for trying to purchase sex from someone that they thought was a willing adult sex worker. I say at least 500 because this is only what this is how it goes just about every year. The first 5 years that the FBI did it, they released their numbers. They were really proud. They would be like, we arrested like 800 sex workers and also 40 pimps. And everyone kind of was like, well, that doesn't really seem like a good use of your time or the money that we're giving you to, fight about sex trafficking. So they stopped advertising that now, and they won't tell people how many prostitution arrests they make. But that tends to be, if you look at any of them that they've done, that tends to be what happens. And if you look at really any sex trafficking sting across America, whether the federal government is involved or just city police or state police or whatever, you will see the same thing. You will see a big headline that says, we've conducted this huge human trafficking operation, and what it usually consists of is cops going on to some advertising site like Backpage, answering ads that sex workers put out. When they come, they arrest them. Or pretending to be sex workers, and when the Johns come and try to pay for sex, they arrest them. They hope somehow that in doing this, they will magically stumble upon people who are doing bad things, and they say that, well, in order to do that, we need to just arrest all these other people. But, in addition to, they don't need to arrest consenting adults for trying to, make a living or trying to purchase sex in order to do this. Also, what's most egregious about it is that they end up using all of this money and all of this federal resources and all of this manpower and all of the time, and they use all of this stuff that is being sold to the American public as we're using this to fight sexual exploitation, we're using this to fight the exploitation of children, and they're using it to arrest consenting adults for having sex. So it's doubly egregious because it's really shitty to the consenting adults, and also it's taking money away from the victims that they're claiming to help. Another thing about the victims, too, is that they often get arrested themselves. A lot of states still allow underage people, even though under federal law they're defined as not able to consent to prostitution, they can still be arrested for prostitution. You often see also, if they don't arrest them for prostitution, they might arrest them for loitering, or they might just take them into jail and keep the teenager, anyone who's under 18, keep them in juvenile detention until they can figure things out. Best case scenario, they will send them back to their parents' home or to foster care. A lot of teenagers that they find who are engaged in prostitution are already in child protective services. And when you talk to victim services providers, some of the things they say are, that these people are engaged in this to get by because they have run away from their homes and they are selling sex because it is better than where they came from. A lot of them are victims of, parental abuse at home. A lot of them are victims of sexual abuse. A lot of them have mental health issues. And so they, just sending them back to those environments is not really going to help. And that's the best case scenario if teens don't get arrested here, is that they just get sent back to where they came from. Occasionally, they will get to go to some sort of specialized shelter or services. But those are very rare because there's only a couple of them across the country. They have very limited beds. They have very tight rules. A lot of them are run by Christian groups, so they might not let in queer or trans youth. A lot of them have rules where they won't let in anyone who has a criminal record. So if any of these kids have gotten arrested for prostitution before or anything, for truancy, whatever, they might not be allowed into the shelter. And then, even if they can get into the shelter past all these rules, there are very, very few beds. Because we're devoting both of our resources and attention to things like these stings that arrest adults instead of, things that actually could benefit victims. So, so that's what I think is especially insidious about this, is the way it harms the very people that it is protecting to help. And also, aside from teens, the other people who are most vulnerable also end up the worst off, because it's the people who can't afford, the people who are just barely scraping by. It's not the people who are the sex workers who are able to, advertise on their own private websites, or, take the luxury of swinging their clients really well. It's the ones who put up an ad on a site like Craigslist or Backpage, and then they're vulnerable to getting caught by cops. They get arrested, they can't pay the bail, they're stuck in jail for weeks. If they had another job, or if they had kids, that they can't do anything about it, they can't pay their bail, they're in there. If they're immigrants, then they are really in trouble. One of the really disturbing things you see is that the Department of Homeland Security and Immigration and Customs Enforcement has started getting involved with a lot of massage parlor stings, and they say that it's to stop human trafficking, but they never find any human trafficking. They arrest these women for misdemeanor prostitution, or sometimes just for giving massages without a license. occupational licensing. And so they take them to jail, and then they hold them, police have agreements with ICE to hold them on these detainers so that after they can get through their misdemeanor prostitution charges, they will go to an ICE detention center and likely be deported if I mean, obviously if they're an undocumented immigrant, but even if they are here legally in the country, if they're a legal permanent resident, getting arrested for prostitution is a deportable offense. So it's these kind of people who are swept up most in this sort of federal prostitution stings too. So it really ends up coming down hardest on the most vulnerable people.
Just like, I mean, it's very similar to how this thing has been falling. It's very similar to, you know, they put forward all these new laws and they say that they want to help these victims, they want to help the most vulnerable, and instead they end up harming them, as Liz just talked about. I mean, it's similar to the war on drugs and how, you know, well, actually, I don't know if it was ever like advertised as something that was supposed to help victims or addicts. I know it was supposed to eradicate drug use. So you think that it's supposed to help people who are addicted to drugs. Instead, we're throwing those people in prison routinely who have addiction issues themselves, not providing them the type of services that they need, et cetera, et cetera. So it kind of mirrors that. And part of the reason why this has become such a big thing, I mean, if you've been following this issue or even read the news sometimes, you have likely seen various headlines or just documentaries or things on CNN or like police press conferences dealing with this issue. I mean, recently you see that Ashton Kutcher recently testified about how he's saving all of these sex trafficking victims with this new tool that he has. I don't really understand what it is, and it's definitely a little exaggerated because he says that he saved over like 6,000 trafficking victims, more than the police say that exist. So it's a little bizarre.
Like thousands more. He claims that his organization has helped cops find thousands more sex trafficking than federal data shows, like any law enforcement across the country haven't been charged anyone with. So
because this is a very emotional issue. I mean, when you think about what sex trafficking is, I mean, it elicits like a very visceral response. Like nobody wants children to be sold into sex work, and so the media has really kind of gone with that, and they ran with it, and we've seen, you know, again and again, there will be headlines all over the place just saying that there were sex trafficking stings, we arrested all of these sex traffickers, these children were saved, and that has really helped drive this sort of law enforcement response, just sort of the volume of what we've been seeing as far as prosecutions and arrests are concerned. And again, I don't think we really touched on this, but Operation Cross Country, like, what it actually is, it's like a sting that happens just one weekend a year. So they do it so that, like if you think about what is effective enforcement, I think it's like actually doing research and figuring out where these things are happening and just enforcing the law as you see these violations happening. No, what they do is they save all that until one weekend in October, where they can generate all these different headlines of all these different law enforcement agents like arrested these hundreds of people this one weekend in October, just to sort of maximize the coverage of this particular issue. Which if you think about like actually saving victims, like why would you wait until one weekend in October to do all this? It's not to save anybody, it's to generate headlines and it's to, you know, sort of increase coverage of this particular issue.
And you saw this too, I've read this book recently, The FBI and the Making of the Mann Act, which is, I quote in my article a lot, which I keep talking about here, but you saw this too a lot with the early days of the Mann Act, was that Hoover loved this because he would use it for everything. He would just use it to the Mann Act, like, you know, be like, oh, we're doing a Mann Act investigation, and just use it to go after anyone who wanted. But then he would make it seem like it was all about helping, you know, exploited women and children, so he would find the worst possible cases and then send out these, I don't know how often they were, but like quarterly bulletins, like all around it. And so to make up, like, here's all the great work we're doing with the Mann Act. And it's just amazing because, I mean, that's exactly what you see with these sorts of things, is the vast majority of what they're doing is not anything like what people think of as sex trafficking. But they, I mean, obviously there are some bad cases. So and then they take those and they act like those are representative. You can see in sort of the stuff that the imagery that they use, well, I guess we don't really have any of it here, but, you know, the Department of Homeland Security has this blue campaign, and it's all just like very sexualized images of young girls actually reads closely, it's like, hey, they're not saving anybody, they're arresting people, but they just make such a big splash of all of it that it's hard for people to, look past that, and it's just.
I mean, I don't know if you guys saw recently, I think this was another thing that, always comes up every year. With the Super Bowl, people think that like sex trafficking is a thing that happens every year. There was recently a story of an airline ambassador or a flight attendant who supposedly saved a girl from sex trafficking or something like that. Like, this girl looked young, she looked abused, and this is all what she said. And she said that the girl went into the bathroom and like wrote a note, and the flight attendant saved her. I mean, these are the types of stories. And again, I think it's important to reiterate this again and again. We are not denying that sex trafficking exists. We know that it does happen. And when it does happen, it's egregious and people should be punished for it, because nobody should be able to force you into doing any behavior that you don't want to engage in, especially minors. It's important. But these stories that come up again and again in the media, or like this woman wrote a Facebook post about how she thought somebody was trying to sex traffic her baby in a grocery store.
From Hobby Lobby.
From a Hobby Lobby.
And it went by, she was like, I knew it because they were watching me, and it was like, she was like a white woman, and they were like Middle Eastern or something, and she was like, put it on Facebook, and it got like 40,000 shares or something, like, watch out, the Hobby Lobby Middle Eastern traffickers were trying to steal your babies. So.
And it's always going viral. I mean, that stuff is always going viral, similar to how the hysteria around crack was in the 80s and 90s, and how, the crack babies, and that was just a problem, and we need to crack down. Well, we need to crack down on crack babies. Crack down. Crack, okay. And we're seeing it again and again. With heroin, this is a new drug, this is a new hysteria. We need to, our just automatic response is like when we see something that gets at our emotions, and it's an actual problem that should be dealt with in an appropriate way. In the United States, we just always have this response of just kind of increasing penalties and expanding the definition of who we define as a criminal. And it doesn't help anybody, and I think that's kind of the point of what we were talking about.
So I'm leaving this slide up just so, I think I mentioned this earlier, but these are the FBI actually puts out YouTube videos of its stings, and it's just sort of amazing that they do that, I think, but it just shows them arresting woman after woman. So this is from their saving people operation. I'm gonna close up, and then we'll open up for questions for the last few minutes. To close, I just want to tell you guys things to maybe be on alert for with where this is going, and big controversies surrounding sex trafficking and prostitution law right now. The first one I would say is the immigration stuff. We were already seeing this under the Obama administration, immigration officials using prostitution busts as a pretext to find, undocumented or just find immigrant women and round them up. But with our current climate and with, whatever is happening with the Trump administration and immigration enforcement, I think that it obviously could be so much worse, and they could really go in on this more. I think you might see a lot more of, them using this as a pretext. The other big thing to watch is the Backpage hearing. I don't know if you guys know about Backpage. It's a website like Craigslist. You can advertise on it. You can advertise your sofa or like you're a babysitter. There's also an adult section where a lot of prostitution ads go up under, the heading, euphemistic heading of escorts. So it's been in this big it's been the big target of Congress and all sorts of politicians for a while now, because they're saying that, it helps sex trafficking, even though Backpage has been really great about working with law enforcement, and, if they do find someone who is being trafficked that is advertised on there, actually helping, turning over posting the ads, credit card information, all that stuff. But regardless, they're going after Backpage now in the same way that the government went after Craigslist a few years ago. They were like, we gotta get Craigslist to shut down its adult section. Craigslist did. People just migrated to Backpage. They shut down a few websites like this. So this just keeps happening and keeps happening. And what you see is, there was a congressional hearing about Backpage recently. One of the big things you're seeing from a lot of politicians and advocates right now is saying that we need to get rid of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. That is the law that sort of is the glue of the modern internet as we know it. It says that you cannot hold a website liable, a third-party publisher liable, for any criminal activity that users post. So So it's the reason why if someone makes a threat in the reason comment section against, another commenter, reason can't be held liable for that. It's the reason that if someone, posts anything on Facebook, posts criminal threats on Facebook, Facebook can't be held liable for that. It's a really, really important law, and it's been, it's been challenged a ton of times, and it has always been upheld. And a lot of people have been trying to sue Backpage for ads. Backpage, it's just they don't see what the ads are. So they are not the persons posting the ads, but a lot of people have been trying to say that they are, and they should be, the CEO should be held liable for sex trafficking. Every time the judges say no, because of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, you cannot do this. So now there's this huge push to get rid of it, and that way we could hold Backpage accountable for human trafficking. But you would also be able to hold every website out there accountable for anything that any user posts. It would be just disastrous. It would shut down the social web as we knew it. You have sometimes people saying, well, maybe we'll just amend it so that you can't do, if it's sex trafficking, but, it'll still protect everything else. But the thing is, we've seen how we go about sex trafficking investigations, which is really just all prostitution, which would mean, A, that we'd be shutting down sites over prostitution. B, I read about these cases like every week, and I've seen cases where the person, a perpetrator met an underage victim on Facebook, on Snapchat, on Hot or Not, as I mentioned earlier, on Twitter, on all of these sites. So even that exception would still put these huge internet companies on the hook for things. And it's just such a symbolic victory because that's obviously not going to help. And I think most people realize that suing Facebook because someone met a trafficker there is not going to help. Suing Backpage because someone posted an ad there while they were underage is not going to help. But it's this big symbolic victory, and you're seeing so much attention to it. And so I think wherever you can, remind people that when people are talking about this, that it really isn't about victims. I mean, there are people who think it is. They're obviously victims advocates, and they're sincere. But on the politicians level, I think they know what they're doing. They want to get rid of this website, or this law, because it has been a law that really prevents them from going after a lot of things that they would like to go after. And they found that using the very emotional topic of child sex trafficking is a way that people are like, well, maybe we should just get rid of it. So that's one of the things that I think is really important coming up.
Yeah, and I think that, just having good intentions and thinking that you're doing something good because this is an emotional thing that, you feel very attached to, doesn't necessarily translate to good policy. And I think that's sort of our perspective over this whole thing, is that this response to sex trafficking and this response to drug use and drug addiction hasn't really translated into good policy. And so I guess we'll end it there, and we'll take questions until I think we're done. Oh, look at that. We have exactly 15 minutes for questions. So if anybody has a question, you must ask it in the form of a question. I will cut you off if you start making a speech. I'm going to just like that. And just limit it to a one-word question, just one, okay? So, sure. Yeah.
So now that Donald Trump is president, do you think that there is room for optimism that the left will sort of see the problem or things that are going in policy regarding sex trafficking and whatnot?
Did everybody hear that question? No. Okay. With Donald Trump, are we optimistic that the left will start to see the problems with these issues and might start to work on this? I mean, what do you think that way?
Yeah, I mean, in general, I think that's true with a lot of issues. It's amazing how many things people are like, man, it's so terrible that the Trump administration is doing this, and then, they don't realize that these are policies that have been continued across the board. Yes and no on this issue in particular, because I think with things like the ICE raids at the massage parlors, like that, yes. I mean, that's been going on and no one cared under Obama. I think now if people hear that, they'll associate that with something Trump is doing, and they will be outraged and they will pay attention. But in terms of sort of this other stuff, I mean, I think that the whole way that it's still being sold as helping people, mostly it's not gonna change anything. It's sort of a bipartisan thing too, where, I mean, you see it doesn't matter, Republicans and Democrats both sort of, they can agree on this. They can agree on passing really terrible human trafficking laws all the time. So.
I don't know. I feel like this everybody is just equally awful, but I think if we're actually examining this, like typically with criminal justice issues, like we're more like left or people on the left side of the spectrum, they're more on our side of this, but they're just like awful on this. I think sometimes, especially like Kamala Harris, she was the former Attorney General of California, and now she's a new senator in Congress. She was just awful on this back page prosecution. She allowed it to happen, and she kind of brands herself as standing up for women's rights, except for sex workers, except for this and that. So and we've seen it again and again. I think the people on the left side of the spectrum, putting out these either documentaries, on sex trafficking and things like that. That it's just been really bizarre to watch.
It's the whole thing where like a lot of people want criminal justice reform, except for when it on the left want criminal justice reform, except for anything having to do with sex, and then it's something like it's just like all of their anti-carceral impulses just leave, and they're just like, no, we need all the mandatory minimums, all the jail time. So
no. Sure, over there.
So, kind of take this more from the private side. Human trafficking, especially sex trafficking, is kind of been in vogue as a charitable cause, especially amongst Ashton Kutcher, wealthy people, and even more younger millennials, especially my limousine liberal friends. So, for example, a lot of these organizations that sell jewelry, the money goes towards victims of sex trafficking. Do you know where this money's going? Do you think these organizations are doing something that's good?
mostly not. I mean, the awareness stuff, I think it's just like most awareness kind of things, like breast cancer awareness or whatever awareness, and it's usually, it's something stupid. It's like they're selling umbrellas or they're walking across the town or something, and like it's not helping anybody, and they might give the money to a local domestic violence shelter. It's not hurting anybody, but the awareness stuff is sort of dumb, but at least not hurtful. You see a lot of the stuff that some of these groups, though, the bigger charity groups do, is mostly fearmonger and then lobby for grants. Like, I've been just actually recently looking into some of the bigger nonprofits that get a lot of federal funding supposedly to help victims, and like so much of their budgets goes to PR, goes to marketing, goes to lobbying Congress, because they usually have a separate arm so they can lobbying Congress, and then also doing these campaigns that tells everyone, hey, like there are sex traffickers around every corner, they're in the Hobby Lobby and everything. But yeah, they don't actually, like so much of the federal funding that goes to these charities that then say to help people does not go to actual.
There were a number of groups that lobbied heavily on behalf of the 2015 Justice for Victims of Trafficking Act. Just anecdotally, we had a discussion with a woman who was on our side, and she was talking about like the consequences of having mandatory minimums for everything. And I guess somebody in her neighborhood was a member of one of these groups, and they went to church together, and he approached her when he found out that she was speaking on our panel and said, if you talk about this, like we're gonna come after you, basically. So, it's sometimes it's not necessarily like rational or the way that they go about this, and I think they just want so much like justice that they kind of lose sight of how this is actually happening.
There are obviously good organizations, but what's sad is that they don't get the attention and the funding. I mean, like I favor the ones that actually do things, like people who run shelters and stuff like that, and like somehow those are not really the ones that end up getting. Yeah.
I've actually read some reports how the government's held sex trafficking, the problem's this big, but there's actually no evidence of it. The evidence is actually that it's about this big. Have you come across like basically the same research?
Yeah, definitely. If you look at the government numbers, they've been all over the place over the past 15 years. They've gone like up by tens of thousands and then down, and like no one can ever really say why. Finally, like 2008 or 9 or something, the Government Accountability Office, which is the group that sort of audits all the other federal agencies, was like, we gotta look into this, like what is up? And they ended up doing a report saying pretty much all the federal numbers were terrible because they were compiled by one man who did not document his work. That was the direct quote. Compiled by one man who did not document his work. So there's really no idea where that's coming from. If you look at any of the numbers that are popular that sort of get floated around, like we talk about how there's 300,000 children at risk of being trafficked in the United States at any given time. That's one of the stats that won't die. But actually it's from this study where they counted like any child who was in foster care, any child who had a single parent, all this stuff, and said like they were at risk, and then multiplied that times something. And the authors of the study. It was in a non-peer-reviewed paper. The authors of the study now say they disavow it, that you should not, it's not an accurate thing at all. So you have a lot of people saying this like that, like based on hypothetical, and then when you actually look at arrest numbers and things like that, it's so much smaller. I know that arrests don't correspond, like obviously it's a crime, so it's going to be hidden, but to give you an example, the FBI, them and all of their state and local partners throughout, the United States, and on these human trafficking task forces, from 2010 to 2015, they found about 175 underage people working in prostitution each year across the United States. So I'm not saying that's all of them, but if you compare that to the hundreds of thousands numbers that you have these advocates saying, there's obviously something wrong there. So.
Lady in the red dress, for sure.
I read reports by former forced prostitutes, and she essentially made an argument that until we have, it was implied that until there is legalized adult consensual prostitution, it would be very difficult to write effective sex trafficking laws because if she is, like you touched on this, somebody is originally consensually in prostitution but is on the job forced to do something she did not originally agree to. She cannot go to the police. She cannot go to law enforcement. She cannot bring somebody to court for breach of contract because that is a risk to her. So determining who isn't trafficked is actually difficult. And I think you kind of touched on that point, but would you agree that legalizing adult consensual prostitution is potentially crucial in order to write effective laws?
I mean, yes, definitely. I 100% agree with you. Decriminalizing prostitution is I know, it sounds counterintuitive, but like you said, people who have been trafficked will also agree, a lot of them, because they say, there is no way to help people if they are going to be treated as criminals. And also just not even them themselves, but the people that are in the best position to know if someone is in trouble would be other sex workers, would be their clients, would be, those people, and those people cannot go to the police because, they're, and with very good reason. I mean, the cops are brutal in this, isn't it? It's crazy how can you see them not just be like, okay, thank you for reporting this, we'll let it go. It's like, okay, thank you, and we're also going to arrest you. So, I think you're 100% right.
So this is a pretty emotional topic. For those of us who are interested in having conversations with friends and family who may not necessarily stand where we all stand, what are some key takeaways that we could use to sort of take the emotion out of it and make our points?
Well, I think libertarians are really good at taking the emotion out of everything. And I would just say that I think that it is important, again, so I think Liz will address your question directly, but for me, I think that it is important to express empathy when it comes to talking about this topic. I mean, we just had so much to cover that it was hard to really, I think we did that. But, when you're talking about why this issue matters, I think just harping on the fact that we all want the same thing, we want to help actual victims of sex trafficking, and that the way we're going about it is not actually doing that. So I think, libertarians, we're great at coming up with data and rational points, but this is a very emotional issue. And so if you come and you talk to somebody who's on the left and it's just has the completely opposite perspective, and you just sound like a robot, if they're not going to listen, and they're just going to think you're a monster. So I think starting with empathy, I think is the most useful, but Liz just talking about it.
No, I would agree. I mean, I think that's what I find is best with people is getting through the you don't have to agree with doesn't really work as an effective counter argument when people are talking about like sharing emotional issues like this. So.
And I think acknowledging